If anyone knows how to take a limited quarterback, maximize him, and win some games no one is expecting them to win, it's the New York Giants. They did it all of last year. Madelyn Burke, who covers the New York Giants for the New York Giants, joins us on today's show to talk about Tommy Cutlets, the Brian Daboll effect, and Wink Martindale, who is just going to let it all hang out on Monday night. Let's go.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. A few minutes ago, I placed my very own DoorDash order to get a little drunken noodles, a little pad ki mao from Little Thai Kitchen. Should be here before the show is over. So thank you to DoorDash for lunch. Place your order today. Promo code LOCKED23. Stay tuned later in the episode to hear more from our friends at DoorDash. Madelyn Burke from the New York Giants. She covers the New York Giants for the New York Giants. She's the New York Giants reporter, works on the sidelines, does all kinds of stuff for them. She's on the show today. She's been in that building for a couple years now. She was there for the transition into Brian Daboll. And so she has a lot of insight into the things that have changed there, what Brian Daboll and Wink Martindale have brought to that front office. She's been there from the beginning with Tommy DeVito. And so certainly some interesting things to talk to her about. Before we get there, I just want to quickly give you a little injury update. Because of the Monday night game, the Packers do not have to provide as many opportunities for us to understand who's going to go and who isn't. But Jaire Alexander practiced Thursday. Good news. Now he practiced all last week and didn't play, so we'll see. Devondre Campbell practiced. Josiah DeGuara, a full participant in practice. Does that care that much? I don't know. A.J. Dillon practiced, limited, but practiced. He's been dealing with that groin injury. They're just giving him some rest. Not a big deal there. The good news, the big news, Aaron Jones practiced in a limited fashion on Thursday, and so and looked spry, by the way, from that MCL. So that's one of those injuries where I don't think they would go, okay, you're going to get 20 carries, because frankly, they just don't give him 20 carries in a game that much anyway, where you're going to see 30% of snaps, 35% of snaps. He gets 8 carries, 10 carries, or 8 touches, 10 touches. And they're just working him back because he's got to get sort of back into football shape after a couple weeks off. But that's pretty good news that he's going to be out there. Darnell Savage did not practice. That's one to monitor. But we know that they have Anthony Johnson Jr. in reserve there. Quay Walker, dealing with a shoulder injury, did not practice. Christian Watson with that hamstring did not practice. Other one to watch, Eric Stokes with that hamstring injury coming off of the leg and ankle injuries. A full participant on Thursday. It seems like they are ramping him up to be full go. He had a chance. He was limited all of last week, did not go, was not activated, or was not ready for the game. To be a full participant now is pretty good news. Now, is he going to walk right into the starting lineup? Like, he might, given that you've got, if Jaire Alexander doesn't play, I wouldn't be surprised if they were just like, okay, Corey Ballantyne, it's been fun, but you're a special teams player. And so here's a first round pick. He's going to come in and has played a lot of football for us. That's what's going to happen. That makes sense. So even if Jaire can't go, it seems like Eric Stokes can go. Now, can he give you the full complement of snaps? I'd much rather see him just say, you're the starter again, and rotate guys than say you're the dime back. That doesn't make sense to me. You're the dime back. You're going to play special teams. If Jaire's not going to go, then I think you start Eric Stokes and maybe you rotate. I mean, they've not been afraid to rotate in some of these other circumstances. So I don't know why they would be afraid to rotate in a circumstance like this, like in offensive line. They're rotating the left tackle. They're rotating the right guards. I don't know why you'd be afraid to rotate your corners a little bit more. That just seems like a no-brainer to me. All right, let's get to our conversation with Madelyn Burke, who covers the New York Giants for the New York Giants. Joining me now, she covers the New York Giants for the New York Giants. If you're a New York area person, you also see her on MSG before or after the game. Madelyn Burke. And Madelyn, it's great to be back with you. You did this a couple years ago. The last time these two teams played at MetLife, had a beautiful snow game for that one. Packer fans certainly hoping to repeat that outcome as well, because the Packers ended up winning in impressive fashion that day. I want to start with Brian Daboll, because when we last spoke, we didn't know really what he was, because he wasn't a head coach. This was not, the experience we had with him was as an offensive coordinator and all those things. The job he did last year to me was so incredibly impressive. How have you seen it change this year with a different kind of team?
Well, to your point, so incredibly impressive that it won him Coach of the Year honors. Yeah. I mean, he absolutely earned that, absolutely stepped into that role. And, sometimes a first-time head coach, there's a lot of questions about, okay, what style is he going to bring? What's this? What's that? He is so authentically comfortable in being himself as a coach. That comes from his 22 years of experience as a coordinator and whatnot throughout before he got that head coaching opportunity. Now, this year is, like you mentioned, a different story. The adversity that this team has had, the struggles this team has had coming in injuries. I mean, you look across the league and there are injuries left and right. And week 1 with the Giants, left tackle Andrew Thomas goes down, and that's not as big and sexy of a headline as the Jets losing Aaron Rodgers, but it is almost as impactful, because even in training camp, you hear from Brian Daboll talking about every position on this roster is up for competition except for left tackle. And he almost said that tongue in cheek, but there was some truth to that, because that's how valuable Andrew Thomas is to this offense, to this offensive line. And so him going down, a myriad of other injuries the Giants suffered early. And you hear this so often. It's the old adage, like you really get to know who someone is when they're in a time of adversity rather than in a time of ease. And the fact that throughout all this, throughout the struggles, throughout the losing, the locker room, you walk into that locker room and it still feels very together. It still feels like this team is focused, and that's a credit to this coaching staff. And there's accountability and there's disappointment. And of course, you don't want a coach who's going to be like, no, it's okay. You want a coach that's going to be a little fired up and disappointed in you, that says, why aren't we executing the way I know you guys are capable of? But Brian Daboll has still done an incredible job of keeping this team focused, on course. And, they've won the last 2 games heading into the bye week with Tommy DeVito at quarterback and all of this. So, there's still 2 games out of the wild card, which, it's such a wild thing to say, but the NFC is just,
it can change. It can change daily. Yeah. The Giants definitely still in the race. No question about it. And that's the crazy part. You go back and look at the last couple of weeks with a 3rd string quarterback, a guy that, coming in, no one had ever heard of. I had, because he went to Syracuse for like 5 minutes. But other than that, we don't know what he is. What was, by the time he steps in, obviously you have to be up to date on what's going on around this team. But the 3rd string quarterback, you might not have to do as much research on that guy. What did you know about him the first time we actually saw him on the field? Were you like, let me flip through my notes here? What did you actually know about him?
Well, I mean, he's a Jersey guy. He went to Don Bosco Prep and, living locally in the area and living at home, which was convenient.
Getting that laundry done.
Yeah, get that laundry done, get that bed made, gives him more time to focus on what the task at hand. And I think being a local guy, being a Jersey guy, oftentimes that'll happen, right? A team needs a scout team quarterback, a 3rd string quarterback, and they say, okay, well, this guy's geographically convenient and pretty good, so let's do that. But he, from day one, really put his head down, got to work, scheduled some one-on-one time with Brian Daboll to go over film, to kind of really dive in to say, how do I, understand this better? How do I get to know this better? He and Jalen Hyatt, the Giants drafted wide receiver, 3rd round draft pick wide receiver. They both started rookie minicamp and started training camp on the 3rd team. So they got a lot of reps together and they spent a lot of time together too. Jalen was telling me about this, saying, they were like noses in the playbook together, because this is a whole different dynamic, for Jalen coming from Tennessee, DeVito coming in here, also an undrafted guy. And we've learned this. We've seen this film before. I mean, look at Brock Purdy in San Francisco, the last overall pick, and now he's one of the front runners for the MVP of the league. So it doesn't matter where you're drafted. Tom Brady, he was a 6th-round draft pick. He won a few games. You know, sometimes you can find a diamond in the rough if they work hard enough. And Tommy DeVito has worked his tail off. And I'm not saying that he's going to be Linsanity, but he's definitely galvanized and inspired this like New York, New Jersey fan base. A lot of Italian Americans are really finding this relatability with his celebration and all that. And it's just been so much fun to watch. And Tommy DeVito is now no longer just Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
All right, we're going to get back to our conversation with Madelyn Burke in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends in DoorDash, and my food's here. I got my pad ki mao, little drunken noodles, a little Thai kitchen. That is it's just my favorite. I love it. A little Thai basil in there. I wish I could make it. It's one of those, if you're going to order out, I like to order something that I just am not going to make at home. Like I can make a lot of foods. I'm a decent cook. That's one of those I can't make. So I order out. And when I do, I use DoorDash because they can get me basically whatever I need. Not just food, the restaurants that I love, but groceries, retail even in some places. And so DoorDash has become my go-to when I'm hungry, whether it's because I want to cook or because I, in fact, don't want to cook. I just want to eat. DoorDash can fill my stomach and it can fill yours too. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change and terms do apply. That's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCKED23. Subject to change and terms do apply. I got to finish this read so that I can go eat my noodles. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Well, exactly right. I made a Danny DeVito joke on the show yesterday, and that almost felt unfair to him. He also, I didn't even like, I watched he did a Giants promotional social video where he's like picking, like the blind ranking thing that happens. I was like, wait, Tommy DeVito's like, he's like handsome, got a little charisma. Like you don't even think about third string quarterbacks. You're just like, oh yeah, that guy over there. But like, no, it seems like he's got a little aura.
Peter, we call it Riz. And he's got the Riz.
Sorry.
For sure.
Sorry, I'm too old for that.
No, so, but he does. He said, I remember in the pre-draft process in that car wash, he was one of the guests on Good Morning Football, and Kyle Brandt was almost drooling over how handsome he is. And he's like, wow, you're just such a good looking guy. And yeah.
I love that it was Kyle too.
I know, right? So on the nose. But it was just a very, he's got a presence. He's got a quiet confidence around him. And, you come in as a third string quarterback and you're starting these games and you've had such adversity of the season. The fact that he's been able to kind of steady hand, stay calm, cool, collected throughout it, and almost inspire confidence within that locker room too. Other players have pointed to that. And the fact that he's just, all right, he's comes in feeling capable, and that gives everyone else confidence around him.
I would think that what they did last year with Daniel Jones, revitalizing his career in a lot of ways, can help inform them to handling a situation like this, because Daniel Jones had not had the kind of success before that he had with Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka and the staff that they put together here. How much do you think that like set them up for success here? Because it's like, oh yeah, we know what it's like to take a guy with a very specific set of skills. He's not going to do what Justin Herbert does or Patrick Mahomes. Like, let's give him this thing and let him do it. How do you think that has set them up here to have a little bit more success than maybe other coaching staffs would?
I mean, it's the same thing anywhere you look. I mean, the Packers had to say, okay, we don't have an Aaron Rodgers-led offense. Now we have a Jordan Love-led offense. Now let's build it to the strengths of this quarterback so that he can use the tools in his toolbox rather than try to emulate the tools in his predecessor and whatnot. And I think that that's been the strength of this coaching staff from day one, is instead of saying, here's my scheme, let me jam you into it, It's okay, how can I look at what you are good at and put you in the best position to succeed? And that's something that they do on both sides, all three sides of the ball.
In order to win on Monday, he's going to have to do a better job getting the ball out of his hands, taking way too many sacks. You mentioned the offensive line, Andrew Thomas, who at least it sounds like is going to be able to go, but is a diminished version of himself. I thought he was such a great player last year. I was glad that he was recognized with all the accolades that he got, because he is a terrific player. The rest of this offensive line has just not been where you need it if you're going to be a third string quarterback. Does this profile as a Saquon or bust kind of game?
Well, yes and no. And I think, to the point about Andrew Thomas that, I mentioned he was out and in and out and in. He's back in. He's still kind of dealing with injuries, but at this point in the season, pretty much everyone is.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the way that these two teams match up, though, on both sides of the ball, the defenses are stronger against the pass than they are against the run. This could be like one of those old school NFC 3 yards in a cloud of dust, run the dang ball games on Monday Night Football. And I'm not mad at it. And I think that, especially with the amount of pressure that Tommy DeVito gets, he's not afraid to send the ball downfield. And we've seen him hit those long range balls, that mid-range, his passing game is good. I do respect, though, too, that he has the presence of mind to say, I'd rather take a hit and live to see another down than turn the ball over.
Yeah.
Has not thrown an interception yet, knock on cardboard right here, because that's all I've got. And, he was credited with a fumble, although it was it could have gone either way. It was a missed handoff on a jet sweep to Wan'Dale Robinson and just didn't go their way. But to his credit, Tommy DeVito has been really good at protecting the ball. But again, this Packers defense, you see them every week. They're going to be a bigger challenge than the Commanders or the Patriots or the weeks prior. Running the ball is the formula for success, I think, for either of these teams, to be honest. We're going to see a lot of Saquon Barkley. We're going to see a lot of A.J. Dillon from my perspective. From an outsider, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. And we saw Aaron Jones at practice on Thursday. We'll see if he's able to go, a couple weeks removed from that MCL injury. So he looked pretty spry, but we don't know. Like, the Packers are famously, or if you're one of those kinds of fans, infamously conservative on these injury things, holding guys out. It looked like Jair Alexander was going to go last week, practiced all week, and then come game time, like, he didn't play. So we'll see on that one. Saquon, to me, was the biggest reason the Giants were able to put this comeback together last year. Packers, I talked about it all season, Madelyn. Like, blowing a 10-point lead in London to that team was sort of the beginning of the downfall of that Packers team in the middle of the season. Yeah. And there are a lot of guys that were on that roster. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't, but there are a lot of guys on that team that are on this one. I have to think that they're thinking about that. But at the same time, you've got the Giants coming off the bye.
Yeah.
So there's like low-key, like, some advantages coming in both sides that are not exactly X's and O's kind of things. I don't know how much you buy that stuff, but I do.
Yeah. Well, and coming off the bye could be an advantage. It could be a disadvantage, because this is the world's longest bye. You're coming off of a bye and then playing Monday night. You're playing the
extra day
of the weekend. So it's just a lot of time between football game and football game for this Giants team. And yes, they're getting practice reps. They're getting, that extra opportunity to rest their body, but it's that old rest versus rust debate. Where is the value? Whereas, okay, yeah, you've got 2 weeks to prepare for this Packers team, but also you're not in that rhythm, that lather, rinse, repeat. And athletes especially are so rhythmic and so scheduled and so routine that getting out of it, getting back into it, and getting back into it on a Monday night game, it's going to be interesting to see how that translates for the Giants.
I want to talk about this Giants defense for a little bit, because I think Wink Martindale, he coaches the game the way every fan wants to see the game coached. He just is going to say, we are firing everything, every game, and we will live and die with the results. Yeah. And I feel like that's what every fan wants. Just coach your heart out. Like, just be aggressive every time, for good and for ill. Right. And so that means sometimes giving up a little bit more in the running game to say, we're going to create some chaos. I assume he's just going to do to Jordan Love what he does to every team, and just say, we're going to send our guys and dare you to beat us.
I mean, Wink Martindale is a guy who loves to blitz so much. He blitzes in the preseason. Who blitzes in the preseason, right? But Wink Martindale's like, send it.
And not just blitzes, like, he'll send exotics in the preseason. He does not care.
Exactly, because he doesn't have I don't know if I could say that. He doesn't have anything. He just full A's it. And so, adults watching know what I mean.
Yes.
So he, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially they're going to want to put pressure on Jordan Love. They're going to want to make him uncomfortable. When the Packers were losing, when they were on that 4-game losing skid, Jordan Love was turning the ball over. He was being so charitable. He put 7 picks in that 4-game stretch, and he's being a little selfish lately.
It's the season of giving, Madelyn,
Season of giving, and Wink's going to say, you know what, listen, you don't have to ask Santa for what you want. Just ask Jordan Love. Jordan, I'd love the ball, please. Let's go right to him. So they're going to want to, especially because he hasn't turned the ball over in the last 3 games. So he's been really good at protecting that ball. The Giants defense, that's not what they want for Christmas. They want turnovers. They want takeaways. And their key to success, too, has been winning that takeaway battle, winning that turnover battle the last few weeks. The defense has been such a strength of this Giants team. I can absolutely all but guarantee that Wink Martindale is just going to be Wink Martindale and keep sending that pressure.
All right, we're going to get back to our conversation with Madelyn Burke in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. With the basketball season here, you can now pick a combo projections across football and basketball in-season tournament. Let's have some fun. Tyrese Halliburton, Wisconsin boy, in the in-season tournament final. You can put him with Jordan Love. Put him with Aaron Jones. Put a couple players together. Pick their stats. You think they're going to produce more or less than the number set by Prize Picks. And now you've got a daily fantasy lineup and you've got a lot of fun on your hands. You can win up to 25 times your money. Put $10 in. You get $250 back if you do it the right way. If you do it right, you can do it just like that. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL to use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. What are you waiting for? Go get your money. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever 24/7 streaming sports channel. I love a coach that is unapologetically himself and was not afraid, by the way, to do it to Aaron Rodgers either. Did it in the second half of that game, and it changed that game. I don't know where we stand right now, and I'm sure you can give us whatever update we have at the moment on Dexter Lawrence, but I have been so impressed with him this season especially. He has taken his pass rush game to a new level. It's really remarkable. Did the coaching staff, did you see this level of play coming? Because I feel like this, for a nose tackle to be doing what he can do, is rare.
Well, and I mean, when he was drafted 17th overall, one of the biggest highlights about him coming out of Clemson is a guy that is built like a refrigerator, but can move like freaky fast, like a receiver, right? The fact that he is dealing with a hamstring injury, he is a nose tackle dealing with a hamstring injury. And for those at home are like, well, why is that odd? Well, usually hamstring injuries happen to wide receivers, to
fast guy injury.
Yeah. It's a fast guy injury, right? And so many people are giving Dex the gears of like, well, this is how we know how athletic you are, is that you have a hamstring injury. And, he's been limited in practice. He missed practice Tuesday, I believe. He's been limited most of the week. I do anticipate that he will be on the field, but it has not yet been confirmed. I know that he wants to be out there. I know that he's going to push through it. But yeah, I mean, this is an incredibly powerful and athletic guy. And the combination of size and speed and agility that he has is just unprecedented. And he makes it look so easy and effortless. I mean, I remember, he'll be stride for stride from the quarterback and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, how did Dex get there? How is Dex among the league leaders in pressures, right? How is that? He's getting through double teams like it's sliding doors.
Yeah. That has got to be the one guy. I mean, every week, last week it was Chris Jones. Usually an opposing defense has one guy where you have to go, we need to know where he is at all times. And for the Giants, it's absolutely Dexter Lawrence. And the great thing is, you know where he's coming. The problem is it doesn't matter. Like, you have to try and stop him. And that is a really, really hard thing to do. From the outside looking in, what has your impression of, I mean, you mentioned the losing streak, of the growth that Jordan Love has made coming in here now, on what is really a heater. He comes into Monday Night Football at the biggest stage, national TV, yet again, third week in a row.
Well, and early on in the season too, he showed some like gumption and some poise. I mean, I remember, what was that Saints game when they were down big in that first half and he mounted that huge comeback. And I was like, this kid, he's got it. But I don't care who you are and how long you've been on the bench as the number 2 guy. When you're stepping in to fill the shoes of Aaron Rodgers, that's, going to take a little time to adjust and to get into that comfort zone. And a lot of people say, well, we've turned the page, this and that. Yes, maybe. But I put myself in his shoes and I think, okay, now it's my turn to be the guy. And we've had not one, but 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a row. I don't want to be the one to break the streak. And so it seems to me that he's getting more comfortable in his own role, in his own presence, in his own saying, let me take command of being the starting quarterback of this team. And he's shown what he can do in various capacities. But like we said, like the last few weeks, he's just kind of unlocked another level. The team as a whole has been playing a lot better, I think, the last few weeks. And it's just been such a plot twist for this Packers team.
One last thing I want to ask you about, and maybe I'm just stretching, maybe I'm just making things up. I don't know. We'll see. The Giants have been, at least to my eyes, the premier franchise in New York now for a while. It was Eli Manning. They've won some Super Bowls, and the Jets have been trying to find themselves a little bit. Well, then the narrative shifts. They get Aaron Rodgers, and they get all the hype. They get all the national TV games. Is there like 5% of these Giants players that are going, wait, come on now? We were the ones that were just in the playoffs. Like, come on, we're the show here.
I think the Giants are still the show, and I think you look at other examples. For example, the Knicks and the Nets in the same market.
Oh, yeah.
The Nets, when they
the Knicks are still the show.
The Knicks are still the show, right? The Lakers and the Clippers in Los Angeles. I worked for the Clippers. I covered the Clippers for 4 or 5 years. I know that in the Clippers and their perennial playoff team were still eclipsed by the mid Lakers at that time. And so there's some times where, and this is in no way any dig at the Jets fan base. This is just a credit to the Giants fan base.
No, please take your digs. They deserve it.
They are so passionate about this Giants team that, like, if the Jets won a Super Bowl, the back page of the New York Post would still be about the Giants free agency moves. I would love to see the Jets find some success as well. And, it's wild to see that Aaron Rodgers and everything that he's done to be able to get back on the football field in this quick amount of time. But the Giants are still, this is still taking over the town.
Tommy Cutlets making it happen. Madelyn, this was so great. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks to Madelyn for joining the show today. Great to talk to her. Like I said, we did this the last time that the Packers played the Giants. This was actually not the last time. The last time the Packers played the Giants in New York. Unfortunately, the last time the Packers played the Giants, I was headed to a bachelor party in Phoenix. And so we did not get her on. And that means that I had to get up Sunday morning, Phoenix time, for a London game after a Saturday night at a bachelor party. Yeah, that lets you know how it went. That you already know. And it was Army guys. So, and all younger than me. Well, with the exception of one. So let's hope the outcome is better this time around. I will certainly be less hungover this time around. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. It's a bachelor party. Subscribe to the podcast anytime, any place you get podcasts. I feel like I'm hungover now. I can't even speak. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live on our YouTube page, like we will be Monday after the game, go subscribe to us over on our YouTube channel so you can stay Locked On Packers.